Join me in an easy watercolor painting session where we will paint carrots in an expressive way rather than aiming for precise details. I'm mixing yellow ochre with cadmium red to create an orange color. I then add more water to achieve a medium value, which is used to paint the base layer of the carrot. I start by painting the overall structure of the carrot, leaving some white areas just above the middle while filling in the other parts with medium value of orange. You can see there's a lot of water and less pigment on my brush. So after applying the paint, that area will stay wet for a long time. When we apply a second layer of the pigment while the paper is still wet, it blends with the previous layer and it creates beautiful and unexpected results, which is the expressive way of painting with watercolor. Next, I am using a clean damp brush to blend the pigments, leaving small spots for the highlights, which are surrounded by a light value of orange. Next, using a clean damp brush, I drag the pigment at the end of the carrot to form the root tip. Next, I'm mixing cadmium red with alizarin crimson to create a dark value which I use to paint the carrot. While applying this dark value, I made sure that it doesn't touch the top edges of the carrot. This makes is applied only around the highlight area. After applying the dark value, the highlights on the carrot looks almost like small boxes with hard edges. To soften these edges, I'm using a damp brush and blending the pigments. Then with the same damp brush, I lift some pigment near the highlights so that it blends seamlessly with the surrounding areas. Next, I'm mixing cadmium red with ultramarine to create a brown shade, which I use to paint the bottom edges of the carrot to depict the darker areas where the carrot touches the ground. Next, using ultramarine, I add it to the crown of the carrot. You can see that the ultramarine is blending with the pigment that is already applied because the paper is still wet. Next, I'm using sap green to paint the shoots or leaves that emerges from the crown of the carrot. For the darkest areas of the shoots, I use ultramarine. Next, I use ultramarine to paint the carrot shadow on the ground. Then I mix cadmium red with a touch of ultramarine to get a dull orange shade. Using light value of this mix, I paint around the shadow to suggest the presence of carrot and its interaction with the ground. Next, I use a damp brush to soften the pigment that is already applied to ensure there are no hard edges. If you want, you can stop the painting process here and be proud of your expressive watercolor painting. Or if you'd like to continue, you can keep going and enjoy painting the second carrot that is behind the first one. I'm going to use the same pigments for painting the second carrot. However, the angle of this carrot is slightly different from the first one. So pay attention to its angle and paint the overall structure of this second carrot. To paint the base layer of the second carrot, I used a light value of a mix of yellow ochre and cadmium red to create an orange. I'm using a light value of this orange to paint inside the carrot, and also I left some white area for the highlights. Next, using a mix of alizarin crimson and cadmium red, I paint the areas around the highlight. Using a damp brush, blend the highlight areas to avoid any hard edges. Also, make sure to leave some spots as paper white for the highlights. The second carrot isn't standing out from the first one. So I'm using a dark mix of alizarin crimson and cadmium red to differentiate it and give it more depth and life. Next, I'm mixing cadmium red with a touch of ultramarine to get a brown shade, which is used to paint the darkest part of the carrot. Next, I'm using ultramarine to paint near the crown of the carrot. I'm using the same ultramarine to paint the darkest part of the carrot's root tip where it touches the ground. Then I use a light value of cadmium red and ultramarine mix from the palette to paint the lighter parts of the shadow. Next, I'm painting shoots of the carrot using sap green. To paint the darkest part of the shoots, I used ultramarine. After painting the second carrot, next we continue by painting the third carrot, which is behind the first and second carrots. The third carrot is mostly hidden by the first and second carrots, so only a small area is visible. We can finish it quickly using the remaining pigments on the palette. After painting the crown of the third carrot with a light value of orange, I use a mix of alizarin crimson and cadmium red to paint over the base layer of the third carrot. Next, I use ultramarine to paint the darkest part of the carrot. I'm adding ultramarine at the crown of the carrot, and then I use sap green to paint the shoots of the carrot. Next, using light value of orange, I'm painting the root tip of the third carrot, which is then followed by a dark value of the mix of alizarin crimson and cadmium red. At last, I'm adding a shadow for this third carrot using light value of orange. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you like this expressive still life painting, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. See you in another video. Until then, take care and bye bye from Prema.